welcome you all to the chat show that we are having today on the topic recognizing challenging behavior in young children. Could it be ADHD? So before we start, I would like to give a brief about Early Child Development Forum and what we do. Early Child Development Forum, founded in 2019, is present all over India and overseas. And this forum essentially works for children from the marginalized sections of the society. And we do all of these through our fundraisers. The fund we raise through the small programs we have, the short courses we give, the long-term courses we give, the conferences and all of it. So we have a pool of resource people who has been an integral part of this forum for a long time. And we are also shortly coming up with a book on early childhood development. And the forum is planning a walkathon in Guwahati. Uh, Let me share the screen. This is called the Alphathon. It is a walk for Generation Alpha to raise awareness about child rights, about the importance of early childhood education, about understanding children in the right way, taking care of them in the right manner, and so forth. So this Alphathon will be joined by a lot of people from all over the state, and we really look forward to this event, which is on the 27th of November, 2022. So coming back to today's webinar chat show on this very, very interesting topic, we have two esteemed speakers who have joined us. Let me first introduce them to everyone. We have with us today Kiran Tevtiya. She is a child behavioral psychologist, a parenting counselor, and founder of 18 Petals. Welcome, Kiran. Thank you for taking time out today to be here with us.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you
have
so much.
with us Ashwini Godse, who has joined us from Pune. She is the founder of the Learning Planet, early childhood development specialist, and she develops solutions for early learning, parenting, and redesigning educational approaches. Welcome, Ashwini. Thanks a lot for joining us today. So, without wasting any more time, let us go directly to our first question, which is for Ashwini. Because Ashwini has been working in the domain of special education for the past decade, and she has a good experience of dealing with children. Ashwini, I would want to understand what are the causes of ADHD? So what generally, when we find these children in our school, so we have this preschool chain tender petal. So we see a lot of children who are like, they're so overactive. And we don't understand why it happened. For a genuine person like us, we are not an expert in this. So Ashwini, please elaborate on this.
Yeah. Thank you, Vasvi, and hello, everyone. As you rightly said, that younger the age, confusing it is to find what are the underlying causes of the symptoms that we see, and we only notice children who are, so overactive and disruptive in class, and we wonder as teachers or parents or even teachers in activity center that how what could be the reason why these children are so restless, and why are they not able to pay attention? Is my activity uninteresting? So there are so many confusions, and as you said that ADHD is also termed as an invisible disability. The child looks healthy, the child has good eating habits, it appears very normal, all conditions, the child is not ill, and then still the behaviors are so unmanageable for the child himself or herself and for the caregivers. So I have been a teacher in an inclusive school for 9 years, and then I also worked for the parenting and teacher training for long now. It's been 20 years that I've been working with all sorts of children from all backgrounds. So when we used to discuss these scenarios with our early special educator, or even with the doctors who used to diagnose these children, it's a very common thing to understand that there are genetic factors. Sometimes the causes are genetic, and many researchers have thrown light on this, that ADHD runs hereditary. So it is possible that any person in the immediate family has acquired this, and the child has inherited the condition. And then even if other conditions seem normal, the child is diagnosed with ADHD. Again, as we all know, the prenatal period is very, very crucial. During pregnancy, especially, the whole all the three trimesters are crucial for brain development. If some factors affect the prenatal development of the child, uh, there are studies which have shown that consumption of alcohol, although there are no strong evidences about against smoking, but all these conditions hamper the brain development during the crucial period. At the same time, it is observed that the structure of the brain in the diagnosed ADHD children shows some differences than the normal brain. So that is one of the greatest cause of ADHD. During birth, of course, if you have a premature delivery, if there is low birth weight, then it pushes the children towards this condition, because it is a neurological condition that children have to face. And all these together, post natal period also poses some challenges in the environment. So if the child is exposed to lead or overuse of pesticides, so everything that could go and hamper the brain development when it is in the most sensitive time period, it is going to affect the child, and the child could be pushed towards ADHD. There's another interesting fact that comes, that although what I'm saying, that the symptoms may not cause ADHD, but if certain things that I'm saying that are already existing, it could worsen the child with having diagnosed ADHD. Like, for example, now overuse of screen or television, or overuse of sugar, or there is family stress in the younger age, or trauma happens in early years. All these are the factors which could worsen if the child already is diagnosed with ADHD. So as we know that all the prenatal period, birth, and postnatal, all three stages pose challenges to children, and genetic and environment both show the underlying causes of ADHD.
Thank you so much. It's wonderfully explained, because nowadays it's mostly related to even lifestyle, the life that we have, and the parents, essentially, like you said, in the prenatal period, the pregnancy part. So that care at some point of time, probably the parent is not able to give to themselves, which in turn affect the child now, who is developing in the womb of the mother, right? So that is there. Coming to Kiran now, yeah, I would. Should I ask you
Yeah,
the question?
yeah,
Yes.
there was just wonderfully when Ashwini you had shared. So there were two thoughts actually which came in my mind, and it'll be great if Ashwini, you or Vasvi, you could share your thoughts on that. One is that in today's world, whether it is ADHD and autism is completely a different thing, but still there is more and more diagnosis, and the percentages are increasing more. Sometimes we say 1 in 10 child, sometimes we go as much as 1 in 7, all different studies. So it'll be good if we can know that is it because the criterion that we have in our diagnostic and statistical manual, is it because it is becoming more and more, the umbrella is increasing so that more and more children are able to be diagnosed, or is it that indeed the number is increasing because of some factors? I mean, it'll be nice to know your thoughts on that.
I feel a general take on this, because I really do not know in depth, but uh, I think it's the diagnosis has come into picture in a proper way, which is more scientific, and it's more parents, and we can actually give a report on it. That is one. And number two, the cases are also increasing now. When it used to be 30, 40 years back, parents used to say my child was extremely naughty, extremely active. I would not be able to sit. My other children were not like that. Only my one daughter, out of my three or four children, because that time there used to be more number of children in every family, is was she really tired me the whole day and kind. So I think that those were also symptoms of ADHD, which were not kind of which could not be identified at that point of time, because of no proper ways of identification. That is one. And number two, as far as I believe, because of our lifestyle change in our eating habits, in overall lifestyle, not only eating. I think children have become more prone to ADHD right after they're born because even like Ashwini said very aptly, too much exposure to the screen adds to it. I feel it is there because if a little one is watching Tom and Jerry, they have very they move very fast, the two characters, right? And the child is too young to comprehend what is happening. So it's very frequent eye movement that is happening because the child is trying to follow both Tom and Jerry and what they are doing. So those kind of things create a lot of confusion. They create a lot of things. That is what how I look at it. Probably that might not be the case, but I think all of this is adding to rise in cases of ADHD. Anything you would want to add on, Ashwini, on this?
Yeah, wonderfully stated, Vasvi. I will also add, Kiran, that even when I started working with children in an inclusive setup, and for me, any diagnosis was kind of a Lego in early years because every children needed to have the sensory input. Every child needed to go to the sand pit. It was not I used to explain it's not occupational therapy. This is normal child development. Please let children have these experiences. And that time, if you ask me, I used to get puzzled by this, why this severe diagnosis in early years, and why are we categorizing? And then my friend would come up and say that it's not labeling. It's like if the child has it qualifies on all the parameters on the checklist, then only we are issuing the diagnosis so that the child can be helped later. So to add to what you are saying, Kiran, I think from an educator's perspective also, we also need to check back the expectations in the early years, because when do we actually see children different when they cannot conform to the set that we have enlisted, and if you are able to take instructions in the proper manner, if you are able to finish your uh, homework or whatever the teacher is doing, I think in a personal opinion, we really need to first check our curriculum frameworks and check whether we are offering exactly what developmentally appropriate activities are, and if children are then still performing differently and not being able to contain their attention to the classic ECA activities also, then let's think of screening. But I do believe the anxiety of parents and teachers leads to a very early spotting of these things, and everybody's so kinesthetic intelligence, a person more towards more physical activity, a person not being able to sit still, needs to be handled differently than what ADHD, and let's not confuse us and parents and educators. But the cases rising could one of the diagnostic has gone up, and I think the anxiety of getting children diagnosed is also going up. That's how.
And I'll take just a little push my limits a little bit. And one more question that came in my mind, because we have educationists also out here. See, when we look at longitudinal studies, right, and that generally is across generations, and if we have to truly believe that if we talk about genes or DNA, nothing really substantially changes in 3 to 4 generations, right? But the way we are living, 3 to 4 generations, we are talking about like 25 into 3, 75 to 100 years of horizon here. So even if we talk about maybe ours or our parents' childhood, so the way the curriculum, like Ashwini, you're beautifully sharing, especially in the preschool segment below 6 years. So the way more and more structured kind of learning, of course, brain is developing so fast, and it has right stimulations are wonderful because children can learn so fast. However, somehow, I would love to hear from you that is it that the way our primary as well as our pre-primary classes are being designed, is it that the sedentary element and the expectation from the children, like our recesses have gone smaller. It used to be like 45 minutes. Children would finish their tiffins and run to play. There would be more PEs. these days it's like once in a week or something, and that it's still, if the child hasn't finished something, if the child is on remedial, then the child gets pulled out from those extracurricular classes and again do another sedentary activities. So do you think, I mean, what are your thoughts about it, that this highly structured, does it mean, like beautifully you're saying, that the box, so probably are they only catering to a subset of children who fit in that, into that temperamentally and outlook wise, and we are actually kind of the outliers who actually could be functioning well, because there's so many types of intelligence, right? Intelligence is not just numerical or say academic, literary, right? There are so many. So is it that we are kind of leaving them out and kind of, yeah, what are your thoughts about it? It'll be wonderful to know. Thank you so much.
I would like to comment on this. See, the structured learning essentially doesn't restrict a child to a conventional learning process, which is reading and writing, mostly. So nowadays, what the whole curriculum is planned in such a manner that children have to move from one activity, transit from one activity to the next, which might be one sitting activity, next very, outside, you do an outdoor, you do a storytelling session, you come back, you have your tuck, you do another session on some counting, which is again not sitting and doing, but doing it physically. There are a lot of activities related to blocks. Now there's open play. So when I talk about the early childhood curriculum, it's had a paradigm shift in all these years. And now we look at experiential learning through experiencing in a kinesthetic manner. We call it the VAT, the audio visual and the kinesthetic together. It's kind of, all ensemble. And this experiential learning is giving our children a lot of opportunity to explore and learn. And also nowadays, the educators, who generally we call the facilitators and not the teachers, because we believe that we cannot teach anybody, we can only facilitate them to learn. So the facilitators are like co-researchers with the children. So they try to find out together the answer. There are too many open-ended questions nowadays. We look into STEAM education, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math together. So when it comes to the STEAM learning, it's too open-ended in the sense the child is going from one step to the next to discover. So when we are just talking about a planting of a seed, so the child plants, waters, one small comes out, small foliage, and then there's a two leaf coming out. So the child kind of reckons with the entire thing. They learn through that way. So I would not say that we are, kind of limiting the child to an entire framework. The framework essentially is only age appropriate in the sense that the activities they do should not surpass what they're able to catch. At that age. Now we cannot go with a 6-year-old and teach them geometry, but we can teach them about the different shapes, how they feel, how they, how a circular object can roll and how a square object cannot roll, and different ways in, understanding mass and other things. So essentially they're doing STEAM in the classroom, but which is absolutely age appropriate and not something which is beyond their understanding. So I feel that our classrooms are very different, but when we look at the spectrum of ADHD, these children, when they move from one activity to the other, sometimes they are not so focused, like Ashwini already, she had told about it. They lose focus. They kind of, they're not able to concentrate, or they're not able to come up with a solution or an thing. So those are the basic challenges that the teachers or the educators or the facilitators would say have in the classroom. So here, Kiran, I would want to ask you one thing. When we talk about a parent or an educator who is not a specialist, like now if Ashwini is in a classroom, she would definitely very quickly recognize. But all early childhood educators are not, they do not have the talent, or they are not trained to recognize certain kind of, characteristics or traits of a child. So how do you think diagnosis by parent and school is possible in cases of very minor or maybe, extreme level of ADHD? So that's my question to you, Kit.
Great. So we'll focus on preschoolers here. That is maybe 2 to 4 hours of association that the child has. in the school with educators or facilitators. Now, the beauty about that age is, of course, we talked about genetic elements, we talked about lifestyle, we talked about screen, we also talked about some trauma which is happening, some family disputes which the child is subjected to, some abuse that the child is subjected to. So, the beauty about this particular age is that whatever is going on in the child's life, any changes which is happening in the child's life, or any particular temperaments, it's relatively quite evident, and that behavioral would immediately start showing up. Like there was this particular child about 3.5 years. I'm associated with the preschool and I was associated with the daycare as well. So suddenly the child started looking at the walls and would keep doing this kind of action, So then I just looked at the child and I spoke to the parent when the child came, and I said, the child is doing like this. So is the child suddenly started watching something like Spider-Man or something? And the parent said, yeah, lately he's watching a lot of Spider-Man series. Then there's another child who started going under the desk, would just try to cocoon, or would suddenly not know the boundaries. Boundaries is what? The child is supposed to eat from her tiffin, and the child would suddenly go to another child's tiffin and try to grab it from there. So the moment you start noticing it, it is very important for the educators and for the parents to work as a cohesive team uh, whenever such kind of behavior is noticed, because what was happening for that particular child was that the parents were going through a very acrimonious relationship, and then of course emotional things, so the child of course felt highly insecure. So it is very important that they work as a team, because sometimes I tell the parents also, especially when they start putting in a lot of expectations from the school, that okay, should we have a shadow teacher, or should I go and sit with the child? Because practically speaking, it is very tough for the school, because it's one too many, right? You can't expect at least, even if we say minimal, even if at least there'll be 10 children. You can't commercially make it happen otherwise. 15 children, 20 children. So it is not possible for the schools to do justice to the curriculum they have to do. No matter how much experiential you put in, there will always be. Can you imagine a 4-year-old child suddenly taking off his clothes and running around in the classroom? Can you imagine a child? I'm telling you all the practical cases, right? Can you imagine a child who suddenly, 3.5-year-old child, who suddenly starts using a very high swear word and keeps repeating it in the classroom? So you imagine that when another parent comes to pick up their child, they get paranoid that, oh my God, what's happening to, what will happen to my child, and how the influence of the other child will come up. So I always say that whenever you notice any of the behavior and it's very evident for this particular age, and a lot of times, one more thing, Vasvi, that sometimes the child who is towards the other side of the spectrum, that is the high and active side, does come in the limelight. But there are children who are highly passive. They're sitting in a corner and they're watching, but they're not part of the group. And sometimes they do get left out because they're not disturbing anyone. So I would suggest that we need to be observant about both these types, and we need to have them more inclusive. And if it's an active, very high level active kind of child, we need to see what is the way that the child can learn, because the learning style for first 6 years can be way different from child to child. Some children are focusing so much on communication and language skills, they're building towards that. They're looking so carefully at the faces of the people, and generally these are the only children who will fit well in a structured environment. But some other children aren't focusing so much on the language skills. They are fine as long as their basic needs are met. They say, okay, give me water, basic things are met. They are so focused on touching things, building things, unscrewing the car and all, and they're all fine. So it is important that we start noticing, if it is A, B, C, D, one child is writing A, and another child is okay to, maybe do the finger on A, or another child is just okay to make a clay out of it. We should be okay with that. That's what I would say. I'm not so sure if it actually to the T answered your question, but I really hope it did plant a seed, that beautiful seed, Vasvi, that you were talking about of thought in us.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think in an environment which is where we have little children who are still in their very developmental stages, we need to be having a very flexible mindset as an educator or a facilitator or even as a parent. So we cannot typeset them right at that with their one action or two actions. But eventually, when we see a lot of a series of, events happening one after the other, which kind of, puts us into, gives us a question in our mind that, whether some second step or any kind of other intervention needs to happen. Till then, there is no reason to get paranoid about such situations. So coming to Ashwini, see the issue of managing socio-emotional needs of ADHD and a responsive environment to help the children, right? So here, how can we create that kind of an environment, and how to manage the socio-emotional needs if a child is diagnosed with ADHD? So what throw some light on this?
Sure. Again, we are speaking about the early childhood age, and all all the needs of the children are extremely important, because the developmental stages children really need to graduate from, and we all know that if the development needs are not met, the child moves to the next stage with the unmet needs. The child needs to first satisfy those needs so that the child qualifies to acquire the milestones of the next stage. To me, I believe every children have a great need of the nurturing social emotional environment at school and at home, as Kiran had definitely pointed out wonderfully, that each child is unique. Although this is an exhibition age where children are absolutely transparent, whatever they can do, if they're able to do jumping, they jump and show you. You need not evaluate and whether to see the gross motor milestones met or not. They show what it is. Now coming back to, when I know as a parent that my child is a little different from the others, we all understand that to accept this fact is it's very hard, and it's easy for us who have raised normal children and have worked with normal children. But every child, with every child, each parent is also unique. The parent is going to take time to accept to this fact, and the amount of stress that parents go through is tremendous. So firstly, I believe that parents need to work for themselves. To how do they manage the stress? How can they accept this condition and then accept the child unconditionally? It's very, very important that even if the child is diagnosed with any condition, the child will have perfectly normal needs for attention, normal need for affection, normal need of acceptance, and normal need for acknowledging the efforts that the child. These needs are normal. Even if the child has a specific condition, I will always believe in the normalization principle. So instead of focusing what the child has unmet needs, let's focus the whole child, and provide the nurturing environment. Now what happens is this, that for parents who have children with these symptoms, minor or major, that they have to play a dual role. They also have to continuously speak to the school system and take regular feedback, so that they know how to help the child understand that what are the social norms in the classroom. If the child needs to rehearse much more than the others, like Kiran was saying, that it's very unnatural for children to take off clothes and run and then disrupt the whole class. So you can see that the disorganization is on a higher side, aggressiveness is on a higher side. The children are oversensitive. At this stage, I would always say that look at one at a time. Even if the child is normal, we normally advise that give very short, very clear, and very simple instructions to the child. And the need for children with ADHD is higher, because to process what the adult is saying, it takes more amount of time, and very little attention is given, especially the way you are starting your instructions. So is the child, can I calm the child down before talking to him? Can I give a good eye contact? Can I maintain my pleasant demeanor in which I want to try? Because the child is very young. I mean, any child is younger than us when we are talking. So not breaking that bond of affection when you are giving that attention to the child, and even giving a behavior modification strategy to the child. I believe parents should not get bogged with, now I have to treat my child differently. I have to it's like a treatment. So it's not a treatment, it's a strategy that you are giving your child. It's with a rational explanation of age appropriate explanation. So I believe the first thing that the children need is paying attention to details. And how are they able to do it? If they feel safe with their parents. So giving that safe space where, even if the child is so-called misbehaved in front of you, maintaining your calmness and giving the regular acknowledgements to child for the behaviors that they exhibit, which are more acceptable, and giving strategies to modify. It's not, why did you do this? It is causing problem in the class also, you're not understanding. And all this is a background noise that is created in front of the child, where the child cannot pay attention to the detail of the direction that you're giving. So the specific direction always helps. We need to understand that if you look at the emotional needs of the child in the first, after the infancy is over, the child is, looking at independence, autonomy. And if the child, especially with attention deficit, the child is going to make more mess than the other children, more dropping around the house, water is going to be spilled all over, the food is going to be scattered. And then the child is also trying to be independent. So it's a balance that the parents, so I think it's a cycle. The parent needs to take help for themselves so that they're better prepared to help the child at home. And believe me, I've worked with many children for many years. There is always a pleasure to be with children. When if they are ADHD or normal or any other thing, there is something special about each child. And instead of focusing the disability or the condition, we can focus on the talent that the child has, and give the relaxed, nurturing environment, safe environment, so that children can come to you and ask, how do I do this? Number of times I tried to tie the shoelace, but I can't. And then you understand the cause of aggression much more clearly. So I believe, giving these pointers to yourself that, it's all right. Now let's plan a strategy to handle the behaviors. And I'm talking about both the parents managing their own temperaments, deciding certain specific sets of instructions so the child is not confused, and loving unconditionally. That helps all throughout, loving the child unconditionally.
Thank you, Ashwini. Very, very beautifully addressed. Yes, when we talk about a child who is probably less concentrated and more into action, first of all, the parent needs to be very mindful. Here is where the mindfulness practices come into our lives. When we are teaching children to be mindful, first as adults, we need to be mindful around them, and we need to have that calm, which generally children always absorb. They are like very absorbent. So if as a mother I'm very agitated, if I'm anxious, agitated, and I'm giving that vibes of nervousness, anxiety, the child kind of absorbs it. So as a parent, I think of a child who is overactive, I would just say that child is overactive, not name as ADHD or whatever. An overactive child, if the parent is very calm, very loving, has a specific way of saying things slowly, so the child learns to concentrate, to hear, develop listening skills, it works. Now the challenge is because Ashwini already elaborated on what parents need to do and how to love and treat the child well at home, and be a support in the child's life instead of taking the child as a issue or a problem. Now coming to Kiran, my question to you is, see, this is a scenario at home as a mother, right? But the scenario in school is different when you have 15-20 students in your class, and you have a lesson plan in front of you that you need to finish, right? So the lesson plan not essentially is sitting and doing an activity. It can be variety, multiple things, audiovisual classes, XYZ. Now the teacher has facilitator has a stress. She needs to complete it. And one child or two children in her class is all the time kind of disrupting the entire class scenario. Now, how would that facilitator take the class forward with these two children in the class who, according to her, is creating a lot of chaos? So over to you, Kiran. What should be the facilitator's mindset, the way she teaches, or what are the other things she can do?
Wonderful. So I would start with using the similar words, Vasvi, that you had used in terms of how we are doing it with the children. That is the WAC thing, that is visual, audio, and kinesthetic. But I will remove the kinesthetic and I would say visuals, audio, and touch. So generally what works for children who are very, on the move, and even passive children also for that matter, and to be honest with every child actually, is some children are pretty okay from a distance. You are giving an instruction to the child, especially the ones who are verbally and auditorily quite clued in. Now, the reason why screens actually hamper that and actually worsen for the children who are diagnosed with ADHD or any kind of neurodevelopmental challenges is that, like, for example, if there is a house where the TV is always running in the background, yeah, because even though the child is not actively listening to that, there are families where they would come and tell me that the child is not really looking for it. The child is playing with the toys, but the moment we turn it off, the child insists, please turn it on. Some kind of music, some kind of TV. So now we can imagine that when the auditory senses of the child is clued in to a particular kind of dramatic, the way that cartoons of the TVs are, they have a certain pitch, a certain tone. Hello, because in the clinic, when the children come and the moment I use this voice, hello, how are you doing? So even if they are looking in at their toy, they will suddenly look up at me because they're so clued in to listen to this kind of tone. Now you can imagine that, then how would this child respond to our voices, which are not always so dramatic, which are so subtle, right? So that is the tricky point which happens for the children who are high on activity, and that's how the screens actually hamper their even if they have some natural ways, they could have been clued into auditory tampers there. Now, for the educator or the parent in general, I will always suggest, if you notice that the child is not responding to the instruction you gave from a distance, there is no point in thinking I need to keep repeating it again and again by increasing my tone just so that I get, like, there was one parent who says I have to go to 20th level of my tone to be heard, and it looks like the child only responds when I reach to 20th level of my tone. I always say don't repeat the instructions, and that means that this mode is not working at this point of time. It doesn't mean that it will never work. But at this point of time of the development of the child and the way the child has developed so far, because the beauty about children is that they are growing. What a 3-year-old child will do is not the way the child will color a tree would not be the same as 5-year-old child, would not be the same as 10-year-old child, 13, 15, right? So as a parent or as an educator, we tend to get this fear that, oh my God, my child is behaving like this, and we start labeling. We start labeling in the sense subconsciously also, this is that naughty child. This is that disruptor. Oh, here comes, this child. We start anticipating that this is how the child is going to behave. And that's the biggest challenge, because when we start anticipating, that means our behavior will be designed accordingly. When I'm going to tell the child, I'm already anticipating and fearful of the reaction of my child, that means the child senses it, and the chances become higher that the child is going to behave like that. So it actually becomes like a vicious circle. So punishments, thinking that, all right, let me, this child is not paying attention, stand outside, or reward also. I never say it, because somewhere we have to build the intrinsic value and beauty in the activity that the child is doing. The reward has to be built in within the activity, not like you will get something, so finish this activity, then the child never falls in love with that activity. The child is always in a hurry to finish that activity to get that star. I mean, these are beautiful things because children love the stars, but I'm in general saying that the activity also needs to have fun within, which is child's definition of fun. So it is always better that we go closer to the child while we're looking at other children who are behaving very well with the verbal things. We're connecting with them. We go closer. We use visual. That is, we are calm in our visuals, because the moment any of these children, whether it was this side or that side of the spectrum, the moment their defenses are triggered, they close down to learning. Okay, then if their defenses are triggered, either they will start biting their nails, they will start taking something in their mouth, they will start fidgeting too much, or in general, whatever is their way of showing that defense is right, it doesn't help. So how we can help the child not to trigger the defenses but still be able to clue in to the instruction we are giving is that visually we need to look at ourselves, that we have to be really, really calm first thing visually. Then auditorily, our tone has to be, if I always go the other way around, bring it a little down, because children notice both sides. Children notice that our tone has gone up, but children also notice that our tone has gone down. Because if you notice that when parents are talking to each other, and the moment the child enters into the room and suddenly they have a dip in their voice because they were talking about some sensitive issue, child gets clued in, oh, there was something to that I shouldn't miss out on. So they are because see, as a human being, we have inbuilt inquiry system. We have inbuilt ways to, to know that something has changed in the environment. Is there a danger? That's how we have survived till now. That's why we have not become extinct as a species, because we are clued into the environment, to any fears that, okay, is it an attack for me? So if you can bring it a little notches down, you will notice that actually, and touch. If we can put a hand on the child's, shoulders or something, we are actually seated with the child, and we are giving the instruction to the child, and we involve other child also. Because another challenge which happens, especially in a structured environment and even in social setup where the child goes to play with the friends and all, is that somehow these children also tend to get sidelined. Firstly, of course, because of the label by the parents, by subconsciously by maybe the educator or something, that okay, this is the child who is the bully in the classroom. This is the child who will snatch everybody's pencil, right? So the children in any case get a little fearful. So then it is always better where we help the child to be more inclusive, and we also help the other child to, we are kind to the other child, so that there is more team spirit and the other child will not be fearful of this child, and this helps this child. The more part of the group that this child feels, safer the child feels, as compared to the child feels I'm the odd person out in the group. So that's a very high level suggestion, from my end. Yeah, that is visual, auditory, and touch. Thank you.
That is wonderfully said, because children need to understand. Yeah, Ashwini, you'll get your turn to speak. Uh, children children need to understand collaboration and also empathy to an extent. When if somebody is a little different from them, they need to understand the need, put themselves in the other child's shoe, and that works. And when you talk about the inbuilt inquiry system, yes, that's our reptilian brain, which is all the time alert to whatever danger that senses that we sense. Yeah. So very well said, Ashwini. Your comment on this, and then we will slowly wind up the chat.
Sure.
Yes.
Just two concrete points, Vasvi. I think for teachers' mindset, it is very, very important to first set the routine of the rhythm of the class in a way that children take her cues. And it's very important that even if the children who are ADHD and they are mixed in a group, there are certain signals or strategies which help them to understand that now they really need to concentrate, or at least sit down and pay attention. So the rapport actually is very important, where the teacher knows that this is a big circle activities. For this I need to do 1 2 3 4. This is a small circle activity for which I need to do 1 2 3 4, so that everybody attends. Now even if the children are non-attentive, and it is a toll on the teacher that someone's not listening to me and I'm under stress, I think while planning the lesson itself, the individualized education plan can be articulated in the lesson plan itself, that what is the need of the child, a goal for this particular child, what am I exactly expecting, so that it is easier not to ignore but manage expectation in the class, so that you are not pointing to that behavior while you're taking the lesson plan ahead. And it also helps the other children to adapt to this policy, that sometimes when we are doing something together, these two friends need something different, and that's why they are doing this, and this is all right, they will do their job after we do ours, and this is how the collaboration can start. But I think setting up the rhythm is very, very important. I hope that was helpful.
I'm sorry, Vasi, but just very quick point. Unfortunately, because I want the parents, if the parents listen to this, there was this child with Fragile X syndrome, beautiful, wonderful 6-year-old child. And the child, of course, because the children tend to get fixated with one particular odd person who was neurotypical child. And the parents of the neurotypical child got fearful and actually asked their child to stop being friends with this child. And that's so unfair, I mean, that's so wrong. So because somewhere, of course, the parents start in this fear that if my child hangs around with this child, my child will also develop this. I just want to tell to the parents, nobody can become autistic, nobody can become ADHD, nobody can change the wiring of the brain just by looking. Of course, it is a possibility. Like, for example, suppose I spit, another child sees, suppose I'm a child and I spit, another child sees the cool thing, of it and may try it for some time. The way adolescents also try so many beautiful words that they use for some time, and then it doesn't get validated and they come out of it. So children can pick up a few things from here and there, but they come out of it. Nobody can acquire any syndrome from each other. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Parents, because generally when we are looking at early childhood development, and parents, I would say, actually requires some kind of training when they are rearing their children, because there are a lot of aspects that needs to be covered when we are talking about even special children, identification, acceptance. There are a lot of there's a lot of denial by parents in most cases. So even that poses a challenge because the denial period is again lot of commotion, lot of chaos, lot of issues that come in. But generally, yes, parents, I think, need to, that is why ECDF is a forum that works very closely with parents, with early childhood educators and school leaders, so that, we can create the awareness. We can create understanding for them because, see, we are trained in some aspects. We are trained in preaching. You are trained in understanding the child psychology. But parents are natural parents. They do not think that they need to be trained and they do not like to be advised. Like as a parent, I might not like somebody coming and telling me what I need to do with my child and then I would say, oh, my child, I know I will do. But in this process, when you are dealing with something, your own child or anything without responsibility, then there's a lot of harm unknowingly that you might be doing to your own child in the process. So I would always advise parents to, get in touch with people who are experts in the field to have an understanding, not take things very, very seriously at every level, because nowadays the word ADHD has come about. So suddenly if a child is hyperactive, they would just, label the child ADHD ho gaya, ye hai, your child is this. So a lot of labeling happens, and I think we have to somewhat vibrate in another, in a higher frequency when we are dealing with children, because we cannot just get them into a complete framework, make them do things and all of that. We have to be more flexible, we have to be more relaxed, and we have to be more mindful as parents, even as educators. That is what I would like to, put forth in this final part of our chat. And any closing comments from Ashwini and Kiran? Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I will just sum it up like beautifully, Ashwini, where you said that focus, see what your child is doing, apart from seeing what your child has not started doing so far. So enjoy what your child is doing as well, instead of always being in this race of tick mark that, oh, the child has not achieved this, child has not achieved this, child has not achieved this. There's a lifespan of development that's going to happen. So do not forget to enjoy it, first thing. Second thing is, a lot of time parents become so busy with just taking care of the child, they forget that they also need to take care of their own self, they need to take care of their own relationship. Often their relationship goes for a toss, especially if the child has certain kind of special needs. So they are investing so much of time and the resources. I always say that at least maybe have some, park the child sometime with some trusted adults and spend some time with each other, because if your bond is strong, that's the foundation on which your child is going to stay. If it is wavering, it's only going to be worse for the child, no matter how many hours you put in on the child, right? And the last thing which I would say is that uh, uh, because you start focusing on what the child is doing now, if as I hear when Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev says that when he was a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, and then he would go out of his house, he will go in the forest, he will stay there for a night or something and come back. Can you imagine a child of today is actually doing that? We would actually start sending the child for therapies and for counselings, and say we have to take out this booth from the child's mind and we have to normalize this child. We would have lost a Sadguru. I mean, if his parents would have done so. So please focus on what your child is doing. Enjoy what words come from the child and what is really triggering his smile, and see what are the strengths of the child. Oftentimes I get children 13, 14 who can tell me what are the things they are not good at, but they struggle to tell me what are the things they are good at. So that's my closing remarks. Thank you.
Ashwini.
Wonderfully put, Kiran, and it was a great time with both of you. And I hope all the parents who are listening to this can, take away this particular point that we can all stop putting a self blame, whether it's a parent or a teacher. We know that this has happened, and now why this child in my class? Oh, why did this happen to me? And what is it? What bad did I do so that this happened to me? So I think after one particular stage of trauma, we feel really bad that the child may not be able to enjoy certain things that the other normal children will enjoy in terms of socialization, or getting praises in the classroom for higher cognitive achievements that generally children do. I think the most important thing is that we all can design, because environment plays a great role in shaping the development of the child. Let's focus on that, and then we are the creators, because the environment is under our control, whether we are a teacher or we are a parent or the family as such. Not giving sympathy towards अरे रे बेचारे को क्या, आ जाओ मैं देख लेती हूँ तुम चली जाना. So it's not about that. Let's understand that our philosophy always said that it takes a village to raise a child. Let's go back there, and we will understand that we can depend on people. And even if let's not coin the therapies as bad things or counseling sessions or something. Let's not look down upon them. Just as you go to a play park, you can go to the therapy session, because that is also play centered. Just as we go to any counselor, just we can go there just as we are going to a different relative. To have that mindset that this is a village, this is a community which will help all children whenever we need, and we are taking small portions. We are not institutionalizing the child forever. Let's not get into that pressure, and let's not also say that because of this child my life is getting hampered. Just as Kiran beautifully put, it's absolutely all right to plan your life as well. See wherever the child fits well, enjoy with the child, but do have time for yourself. And life unfolds itself. Whatever condition you are, your talent will come to a surface. You may have to wait a little more, but every day can be as normal as can be. And you can, I'm sure we all can help. And let's not hesitate to take any help. You are not, let's not get pressurized that, even I have to ask for help now. And it's my appeal to the overall audience who's listening, that it's not only the people who have children with ADHD need to be sensitized about the condition. I think all of us as communities, we owe it to our children, we owe it to our next generation, and we as mature adult communities, we can come up with smaller resources, smaller help, so that every child feels that he or she is special to the family and to the society. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashwini. Thank you so much, Kiran, for joining me today on this chat. And I feel the world needs more people like you who, look at the thing from a softer lens, not a very hard focus on, what the child's behavior is and all. We have to be more, we have to be really, like I said, more empathetic, more understanding as parents, as educators, even as children. The children need to know the need of another child. And I think that way we will be going a lot ahead, because these are things that come up, now ADHD or some other, another may kind of symptoms might come up, but we always have a way to deal with it, and then we look at it, and just I think, like Ashwini said, we are all good at the end of it, right? And that's a positive note to this. And Kiran, thank you once again. Ashwini, thank you once again. It's been a very, very enlightening discussion, and I hope everybody's watching us would have a lot of takeaways. And also, this session would be in the YouTube. So we'll be sharing the link in all our groups in the forum in different parts. And I definitely feel that it's going to help the educators and the parents a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us. And it
bye. Have a great day. And wishing everyone a very happy Diwali, and let the festival of lights light up your life in all aspects. Thank you.
Happy Diwali to all. Thank you, Vasavvi. Thank you, Kiran. Bye.